Having understood what is regression, let's now move on to the types of regression. There are basically three types of regression. To start with, we have simple and multiple regressions, then we have linear and non-linear, then total and partial. Let me write them. The first one is simple and multiple regression. So what do we mean by the simple and multiple regression? Simple regression is a case where only two variables are considered. This is a case where only two variables are considered, and in that one is going to be a dependent variable, the other one is going to be independent variable. For example, the case what we have discussed, like sales and advertisement. So sales and advertisement, if you take, there are two variables, so one variable is going to be dependent on the other, so only two variables are considered. Then we have this multiple regression. Multiple regression is a case where you will have more than two variables. It means the variables, or I mean, if I say dependent variable, it is not dependent on only one variable, it is going to be dependent on more than one variable. So what happens here is we will have one dependent variable, okay? We'll have one dependent variable, I'll call it as dv, whereas independent variables will be more. It means one is going to be dependent variable, the others will be independent variable. So that is multiple regression. Okay. So if you want to have some example for this, I can give you, say for example, we are trying to measure the regression between, say, something called turnover, and I'm going to call the turnover as y. Then this y, which is dependent variable, okay, it is dependent on independent variables. Let's say advertisement, it is dependent on independent variable, let's say advertisement, I'm going to call it as x. Okay, it is also dependent on the other variable called income of people, so it is it. So this is multiple regression where you have one dependent variable, or basically you have three variables in which one is dependent whereas two variables are independent in nature. Okay, so that's about simple and multiple. Now let's move on to the next one. The next type of regression are linear and non-linear. We have linear regression and non-linear regression. So how to understand this? Let me just take it to the top. Let me just take them to the top. Yeah, linear and non-linear. See, if you say linear, okay, now we'll just focus on linear regression. This is basically based on a straight line. This linear regression is based on straight line, and this can be both a simple regression like what we have seen where only two variables are involved, or this can also be a multiple regression. Okay, this can be a simple and multiple, and the linear regression will help us to predict. So it will have predictive value, and it will help us to project the future. So it is mainly used in the projection. Okay, so that's about the linear. But if you take non-linear, non-linear is actually a curved trend lines. Okay, so we are going to derive curved trend lines. Don't worry about this. When we take up the cases, you will understand. Okay, so curved trend lines are derived in case of non-linear, and equations are actually going to be parabolic. So again, I'm telling you, don't worry about the technical terms used here. You will be able to understand. Let's move on to the third one, the third type of regression, that is total and partial regression. So one is total, the other one is partial. Okay, so let's understand what is total regression and what is partial. When we say total, we consider all the variables. All variables are going to be considered, and this basically takes form of what is known as multiple regression. Okay, this basically takes the form of multiple relationship, It means almost most of the phenomenons are actually multiplied or actually affected by multiplicity of cases. So that is the reason this takes form of multiple relationship and all the variables are actually considered. So that's the case of a total regression. Then the next one is partial. Here, what we'll do is we'll consider one or more variables. One or more variables are going to be considered, but the point is not all. Not all the variables are considered, but one or more variables are considered. So we call it as partial regression.
This video, hope you liked it. If you wish to learn more on this topic, do check our comprehensive online course. I have given the link in the description below. If you like this video lecture, do not forget to click on that like, share and subscribe button with bell icon.